What's up, everybody? This is Carlos from Artisan Social Club. Welcome to ASC Online. Today, we want to salute all you freelancers, contractors, whatever you want to call them, illustrators, and concept artists. We just want to say thank you so much for all your hard work and dedication, not only to the ecosystem that is our design world, all the clients that you work with, all those late hours, the long weekends. We just want to say thank you for all the hard work. And guys, today's special guest has been in the trenches with you guys. He is not only a character artist, illustrator, conceptual designer, and his spectrum is so broad. He's worked with MGA, Spirit Halloween, Gravita Games, and many, many more other clients. I want to say thank you for being here. Welcome, Kyle Mjoen. What's up, brother? How are you?
Hey, doing great. How are you?
Good, man. Thanks for being here, and I'm so happy to have you. We're going to talk a lot about some fun things today, dude, and I'm really excited that we get to talk about illustration with you, man, and freelance. I'm really excited about that. I've been there, so I'm really excited to hear your side and your experience. So let's just take a deep dive now and see where we go with this conversation, man.
Sounds good.
So so tell me a little bit about how you got started in illustration. Like, what were your first mentors? What schools you went to? What inspired you to be an illustrator?
Well, I mean, I was always, like most artists, I mean, I was always drawing growing up, and pretty early on, I was set on trying to make a living as an artist. Like originally, I wanted to be an animator for Disney was kind of what I wanted to work on. I remember going to Disney World with my family in like fifth grade or something, and visiting the MGM studio where you could see all the artists, working, animating at their tables. And yeah, I just thought that looked like the funnest job ever and wanted to do that. But by the time I got to school, 2D animation, at least with like Disney, was kind of already on the way out. And but I was also really into illustration work, and some of my bigger inspirations were illustrators. And I was open to doing like concept art or just straight up illustration. And some big inspirations for me, in that regard were, I was always collecting the art of books, and my favorite art of books were the Lord of the Rings books, when like the drawings of John Howe and Alan Lee, doing stuff like that. And yeah, like, while I was in high school, I also had a job shadow with Tom Richmond, the illustrator for Mad Magazine.
That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, like my neighbor happened to know his wife, I think is how that happened. And yeah, I just got to go over and see his setup. So yeah, and eventually I got accepted into art school. Went to Rocky Mountain College of Art and Design, and yeah, primarily focused on illustration while there. And then, yeah, after graduating from there, I kept doing mentorships until, even just a couple of years ago, I had a mentorship through Robot Pencil with Anthony Jones.
Great dude.
Yeah, real cool dude. Well, and I also, I did Robot Pencil a couple times, because then like a couple years earlier, I had also done one with Caitlin Chalk. That one was focused on environment design. I kind of realized that was something that I needed to work on early on, because I was so focused on characters. And then with Anthony Jones, I brought it back to character design. And yeah, I also did some stuff through a Brainstorm School. Had a stylized character design excuse me, course with QFane. So yeah, all kinds of different learning endeavors.
That's really cool, dude. I think Brainstorm School is one of just one of those schools that I gravitated towards when I was back in California. They have a lot of great talent over there at that school, man. Really cool people.
Oh yeah.
Thomas and all those guys over there, man. Shout out to Thomas. You guys are amazing over there. So when you got into illustrations, I know because you and I share that kind of same kind of world of fantasy and the love for character designs and stuff like that. What what led you to doing more fantasy characters versus like, more on the realistic side? Like, did stylized characters, did you lean more on that, more towards like more realism, or how did that work out?
I mean, I'm kind of indecisive about that. Like I joke with people a lot. Like if you look at my portfolio, it kind of looks like it's like 10 different artists. Like, um, I mean, people tell me that they can tell it's all mine, but I don't know how that's the case. Cause yeah, like sometimes I've, gone more, like I said, like stylized, more cartoony kind of, I still kind of try and, keep it more, kind of what you'd see in like video games.
Yeah, yeah.
Not really like super kid friendly or anything like that, but, um, and then sometimes I like to do more realism.
Sure.
Um, and yeah, I mean, in regards to like fantasy stuff, again, that just kind of goes back to like some of my inspirations. I mean, obviously I do a lot of like monster work and stuff. And yeah, like I was always really into that growing up. I was always a huge fan of like Godzilla and
Mm.
the Universal monsters
Yep.
and all that. And like obviously I mentioned Lord of the Rings earlier. Star Wars, like my favorite thing about Star Wars was always like the creatures and the more monstrous looking characters like Darth Maul and General Grievous. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of always where I've leaned towards.
It's funny because you brought up a good point. It's like sometimes even in my portfolio, there's been times where I've gone to interviews and then sometimes they look at my portfolio and they see a variety of different things. And so like I have like cars and I have, like characters, I have props, I have all kinds of stuff in there. And then I had one time this experience. I don't know if this has happened to you before, but um there was one time I went for an interview and the guy who was interviewing me actually told me, you didn't draw any of this. This doesn't look like you're consistent. Like this looks like you pull art from different people. And I was so stunned by that. And I was like, wow, like my versatility actually like it hindered me at this point. It was just more like this was unbelievable for somebody to think that you can't have multiple things in your portfolio.
Mhm.
And that was like the first time I've ever experienced that. Have you ever experienced anything like that where it's like people are like, wait a second, like what do you do? Do you, are you mainly this or are you mainly that? Have you ever had any issues like that? Because I know I have.
um, I haven't received that from other people. Like it sounds like that's specifically with like subject matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
My stuff like is all pretty much like the style varies, but it's all pretty much like characters and
Characters. Yeah,
creatures.
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
If anything, I've been told I need to include more stuff like environments and cars and um I mean, I've lately been trying to get better with like hard surface things like robots and
Sure.
whatnot, guns, and like I should probably do more props as well. So yeah, kind of the opposite, I guess, in my case, but yeah.
Yeah, that was a weird thing for me because I've always, going to like concept design academy and going to all these schools like brainstorm school, all these guys that I've gone to a lot of workshops and all these things. It's like it's always been about versatility and being able to draw things, and art directors are always going to be looking for different things. So I went in with the mindset that like my portfolio has to be versatile. It has to have a variety of things. So I did have vehicles and I had stuff in there, but I was never ever challenged that way before. It was always like, oh, Carlos draws great characters. But then when I started putting in cars and I started putting in like, hard surface stuff, it became more like this isn't your style. Why? And then they were thinking like, because so the what happened was he took my portfolio and he actually went out of the room and he came back and he brought a cardboard box. Like he cut out a cardboard, but this is like extreme, dude. He cut this
Yeah.
box and then he brought a Sharpie marker and he says, draw me a car on the spot. He goes, you draw me something right now because I want to make sure this is your stuff. I'm like, man, to me, it was the most insulting thing ever because I thought to myself, man, like I work hard to draw cars. Like I worked really hard for that, And so I think when I actually showed him that I could draw cars, and thank God I was practicing with Scott Robertson's books, so I got a little bit of that feel of like that kind of sports car, low to the ground, big rims, big wheels. So I got the feel of it. So he was kind of settled by that a little bit, but still it was just kind of like I already was like, man, this is not a place I want to be at for sure. But again, after that, it's like I started separating my portfolio. And I won't get ahead of ourselves because I know we'll talk about portfolios later down the way. But definitely when it comes to like versatility, it's good because I've seen that in your work. I mean, I've given you work like constantly that changes, and it's like you adapted to styles, and it's just been super cool to watch your work, man. And I'm a huge fan of yours, dude. So I like I said, I've always seen you adapt to direction, you adapted to characters, and I mean you've nailed a lot of the stuff that we've sent you, and so I think it's been really cool to see you in that arena is where you feel comfortable in, man. You're really great at character design. So let me ask you this. So for students, now that we're talking, because we're artists and social club, so we're about education. So one of the things we wanted to know about you is like how important was the fundamentals for you coming up as a student, now professional? How important is fundamentals in your beginnings?
Yeah. Well, okay, when I first got to art school, I didn't have much of a understanding of the fundamentals. I just kind of had always, drawn what I, wanted. And I was pretty good at just like looking at images and like replicating from reference. And the whole thing of the fundamentals was kind of a foreign concept to me. I also, I regret to say, like, I had kind of a big head when I first got to art school because, this is kind of a blessing and a curse. I was surrounded by lots of, family and friends who were very supportive of my art journey. But yeah, then, it made it so like when I got to art school, I thought that I was awesome already and I didn't really have much to learn. Which, was quickly, beat out of me through all the critique sessions. It took me a while to get used to that. And then when I got out of art school, I really missed the critique sessions. So, I was like, I need someone to tell me what sucks about this. And yeah, it was, during art school, we had like the figure drawing sessions and, in the illustration courses, we kind of touched on the fundamentals, but there wasn't really there might have been a perspective class offered, but like I didn't even think to look into that at the time. So I didn't really have a huge understanding of perspective. Like I remember like a long time ago getting the that Stan Lee book. I think he co-wrote it with someone else, but the How to Draw the Marvel Way.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the Marvel. Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Where they like kind of touch on like 1 point, 2 point, 3 point perspective. They don't go into like a huge amount of detail on it, but it's mentioned in there. But yeah, then it was so that that's kind of like that was kind of like the extent of my knowledge on that. And I guess I had kind of forgotten about it over time as well. But yeah, it wasn't really until after art school that I really, because I graduated, and for like a solid couple like year to 2 years, I was just working regular like warehouse jobs and stuff, and I was struggling to get work. And it was around that time that I kind of realized I needed to buckle down and like kind of relearn, like look at like what I was doing wrong. And yeah, like that's when I really like leaned into the fundamentals. And I got like the Scott Robertson How to Draw book. I got a bunch of books on like perspective and composition from this well, I've got them I think up here. Marcos I have no idea how to pronounce this. Marcos Mestre, but framed ink. And
right on there. Yeah, I've seen that book before. Yeah.
That's cool. Framed ink and framed perspective, 2 volumes of each. And yeah, lots of anatomy books from you know Hogarth and Loomis and Bridgman, uh, and yeah, like it was, well, especially like during COVID, I when I was locked inside, that was when I really leaned into anatomy, because I was like, I'm pretty good with like the human form, but now I'm going to memorize all the bones and muscles of the human body, and um, and since then I've been, I'm constantly practicing. Like anatomy is my biggest focus. Like, kind of aiming to get really good at drawing the human figure from like my imagination, kind of like, how TB Choi does it, or other artists like her. But yeah, so yeah, like fundamentals extremely important. Learn them as soon as you can. They are a huge help. And yeah, it's no coincidence. Like, every time that I've really decided that, all right, I feel like my work is lacking, I need to go back to, study mode, and go through the books, like copy everything I see, implement them into, new works or whatever. And that, it's around that time every time that I suddenly get people reaching out to me about like, hey, can you draw this for me? So yeah.
That's really cool. And nowadays, like when you're, and I know you kind of answered this right now, but when you're working with like, professional studios, or like you're working with like big projects, um, fundamentals are something that you lean heavily on when you're, now that you're a professional character designer, you know what I mean? Is that correct to say?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, first thing I immediately think of is, all right, where's the horizon line? You know, where are my vanishing points at? Immediately, like, yeah, perspective is the first thing to think about. And yeah, what, drawing on my knowledge of, well, and again, immediately anatomy before I think about costuming or anything, just, getting the figure down as accurately as possible. And then, yeah, color and light. How can I get the most interesting lighting situation here and best color? Like, yeah. So yeah, the fundamental is extremely important in my
And
design process.
I saw that in when we gave you a project. I remember there was a project that you had worked on. It was a creature crawling through like the like a tunnel. And the thing is, like, I remember that I gave you the project, and then you came back with like six different or was it? Yeah, I think it was six or eight versions of different perspectives of camera angles and lighting that we could play
Mm,
and stuff. And you were the very first freelancer that's ever done that for a project like this. You know what I mean? Normally, when you talk to freelancers, a lot of times, like, they always just go, "Well, here's what I'm thinking," or they want the person who's giving you the work to give you a quick doodle, and then you run and go. The cool thing about you, and especially one of the reasons why, and I think for every student that's out there listening to this video, make sure that you guys give the client enough options of and versatile views of different things that they're asking you of, because when you just do a one shot of one thing and it's like that's all you got, this is where, again, playing with fundamentals is super important. And again, Kyle, you can talk a little bit about how you constructed each one of these scenes. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Nightcrawler.
Yeah. So I
Yep.
think that's the one that I think stood out. Now that you've done it throughout all the ones we've given you, but I think for the beginning of that, I'm just talking about the way that you handled each camera angle and gave me different scenes where I was just like, this is great. This is enough for me to play with. This is where I can actually, navigate the better direction to get this thing exactly how we want it to look. Talk a little bit about versatility and also variety. Talk about a little bit of variety when you give a concept back to a client.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that was a big thing that, we were taught in art school. Just, yeah, always provide multiple ideas for the client and also for yourself. Generally, your first idea is not going to be the best. It might be sometimes, but you usually, yeah, you want to iterate. You want to expand on, an idea that's already in your head. Like you said, explore different camera angles, explore different lighting. I mean, lighting, can change just, an image so much, just, like can make it more ominous. It can make it more, uh, peaceful and serene. Like, there's so many things that lighting can do, and the color, like the ambience and whatnot. Um, and yeah, I mean, you also, I feel it's something that I see from some people, you know, you you're really attached to like your first idea, and you just kind of like tack on these other like thumbnails that you don't really put much effort into. You're
Sure,
just like,
right.
screw it, here, there's four for you. But um you want to, well, you really want to make sure that you like each and every one, because like I remember something one of my teachers saying to me is that like a lot of the time the client will usually like pick the thumbnail you least want to do.
True. That's very
um
true. That does happen.
so yeah, you want to make sure that each thumbnail is really cool, and that it's something that you want to work on, and yeah, you want to just give it your all, because yeah, you don't know what you'll be stuck with, and you want to be happy with the final result.
So when a client gives you a project, especially for you, like what would be your best advice when it's a project that you've gone way over your head? Like you're just like, dude, this is a tough one. Should you say no, or should you say yeah to a difficult project that you've never done before? How would you tackle it?
It's difficult to say. I would say, I mean, my initial thought is that you should always take on, you should always challenge yourself as an artist. And if it's something, when you're doing like any assignment, because this happens to me all the time when I'm working on any project, is I'll run into something, whether it's like, I'm having trouble like rendering a character's like hair or something, or just for instance, what I'll do is I'll then, put the illustration away, and I'll pull up a reference like of, like a character, like someone with like similar hair or whatever.
Hmm.
And I'll do like a study of that, like, not too long, like maybe like an hour at most. Um, and then, like, put the study away and like try and retain what I learned from that, and then pull the illustration back up and implement what I just learned. Um, at least that's my tactic. And I mean, whatever it is you're struggling with, it can usually be, it usually comes back to the fundamentals. Like the perspective for, like a lot of times, like, something that I struggle with is like drawing a character in like a really, dramatic perspective, or dynamic, lots of foreshortening,
Hmm.
um, like really wonky pose, and, there's ways around that. You can like photograph yourself. You can, there's tons of like websites with like 3D models that you can actually like animate and stuff. And, um, or, if you're struggling with like, the color and the lighting situation, again, you can, there's a way to find reference for, I'd say, just about anything.
Right.
And,
That's true.
um, yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of how like I tackle it whenever I'm like working on something that I'm struggling with. Um, but at the same time, I mean, one thought that I have is, if you truly believe that you're like not going to be able to deliver, for, because you want to be fair to the
Sure,
client.
absolutely.
Yeah, like you don't want to waste their time, you don't want to waste their money. uh that's maybe something where it's like, if you truly feel like this is out of the realm of your capabilities,
Yeah.
maybe reach out to a artist who can, who you think can handle it better. Or because I mean, I've also heard about this happening just with people working like in, kind of like what we were talking about earlier, like a different style from what they're used to.
Right.
um where they just really struggle, with like adapting and changing, which is fair. So yeah, that's kind of my playing both sides answer, I guess.
Yeah, I've gotten to that point too, where like I've had clients because growing up in this industry, you get to touch a lot of different things, and it
Yeah.
gives you that experience to play with different stuff. Like in toys, where I come from, I've done stuff from superhero action figures from Marvel to, like SpongeBob SquarePants. Like, you have these a broad spectrum of styles, and I really didn't know how I would handle when I was working on some stuff for Marvel, like how I would handle weapons, because I wasn't really a weapons guy. I didn't really know how to do weapons. I figured out how to do Iron Man's new cannon, and I had to do all this stuff, and it was really fun. But I had no idea what I was doing. So I, like you said, I took it on because I felt like, okay, I can do like car design. So I figured hard surfacing, it's not going to be that crazy. And I really took a deep dive in weapons, and I started really getting the appreciation for what weapons were. And I think, like, to your point you said earlier, is like, really kind of uh, put things aside and really get into the nitty gritty of what these things are like, or maybe like you would color in silhouettes. You can get your brain to remember these shapes, and start really playing with, again, going back to the fundamentals. And it really helped me to create a variety of different um, of silhouettes that were very interesting. And I think that saved me in that project, because I was able to deliver a variety of different options, because I took on the project knowing that I could do it. I just didn't know how to approach it. And it wasn't until, again, I did take a little bit of a detour in my fundamentals to really bring a good variety in there. And then I started rendering them out, and I delivered them. So yeah, dude, you're absolutely right. I think it's important to like pause for a minute, digest the project, and then move on for that. So
Yeah. Well, and kind of, yeah, like what you were just saying also made me think, like, yeah, simplifying, what you're looking at too. Cause yeah, like taking on something like, one of Iron Man's like cannons, like, they go into a lot of detail in those movies. Like that stuff's like really crazy. And like,
right.
I've like done a fair share of practicing with weapons, and that's like, even like if someone asked me to just like design a new cannon for Iron Man right now, that I'd be like, oh, like,
Yeah.
how do I go about that? And um, yeah, just like, the basic like design principles, like, yeah, just what you were talking about, dealing, just going into shape design, and just working from the thumbnails, and remembering like your big, medium, small, the rule of thirds and all that. Yeah, that can help a lot. Just,
I
yeah,
think getting
trying to
in.
simplify whatever you're working on.
Oh
And
yeah.
then you can go into like a lot of detail later on, and like look up reference for crazy, like, you know whatever you'd look at for like a plasma cannon, like.
Yeah. I think that's the important part. I think, a lot of students, that when we talk to students about, like, taking on challenges and projects and things like that, um, I sound like a broken record, but I think it's the core truth. And I think a lot of the guys that I've been interviewing, a lot of them go back to fundamentals. A lot of them go back to like learn these things, because you can never just stop learning fundamentals. You got to continue it, no matter what the genre is, no matter what the theme or project is. Fundamentals are going to carry you through that. And if you at least understand the core, again, like the, gallon, pint, teaspoon, kind of like, medium, large, big, whatever, that all that stuff is, might sound juvenile or preschool art or whatever, but it's the core of everything. You know what I mean? And so, and I think a lot of people think that they're probably above fundamentals. They're like, dude, I've been in this industry for 10, 15 years. I don't need fundamentals. And then, but you see their designs are very flat. There's no life into their characters. There's no life into their design. And again, it's like, yeah, you can draw cool pictures or ideas, but when the fundamentals are absent, any professional will tell you you're lacking in certain areas, whether it's anatomy or even like color theory, or fundamentals in perspective. All that
Yeah.
stuff plays a big role. So I think, like you said earlier, it's like it's important to just kind of like include fundamentals in some form or fashion in your process, because it'll alleviate a lot of the stress and thinking about trying to come up with ideas. Because again, the fundamentals, again, even just doing silhouettes, I was able to like really almost like watching clouds and making figures out of clouds.
Yeah.
When I did a bunch of these little weapons, I did a whole bunch of thumbnails, and I was able to see a lot of cool things that possibly Iron Man would have. And maybe this thing expands out of here, and this is magnetic. So there's like it radiates from the outside. So there's these like, so a lot of these things started running through my head as soon as I put everything on black and white. When it was just like the core
Mhm.
basic shapes, and it got to a point where it was like preschool. It was like drawing squares and blocks, and
Yeah.
and think that I'm doing squares and blocks for a project that Marvel's going to have to evaluate and see if this is going to work for their toy line. So I think that's, again, you talk about playing with blocks, but you're actually training your brain to think outside of the normal gun shape or a rifle shape or whatever. It's literally how does using Iron Man's design, shape language in his suit, and implementing it into the canon, and all this stuff starts kind of playing a big role into it. So yeah, that's super important, man. So fundamentals, man, is super key.
And your visual library on top of that. That's something that I'm really, that I've been really working on for a while now. And yeah, just like focusing on like different subjects. And right now I've kind of got this routine where all right, let's see. So Thursdays is my like figure drawing day. So that's when I like do a lot of studying on like anatomy, is actually, yeah, it's from earlier. And Fridays I look at like, clothing folds primarily. Saturdays I look at animals, like primarily like horses, wolves, big cats. Sundays is my portrait day. I draw a couple faces, I take notes, I try and draw a couple just from my imagination. Monday is like nature, so like trees, rocks, that kind of thing.
Nice.
Tuesday, hands and feet. Wednesday is hard surface, so like guns, cars. Like I'll pull like a 3D model of a gun up on like Sketchfab or something and try and draw it from a different angle, and pull up a photo of a car and like draw it in reverse, like just things like that. And then, throughout the day, think back to the drawings that I did and, try and remember like as much detail as I can, so that those things stick in my brain. And, later on, if someone asks me to draw like an Iron Man cannon or whatever, I have some knowledge of like guns in my head to, start out with, so I'm not just like scribbling nonsense.
Right.
Like, so yeah, like that. Yeah, visual library is a big thing. Like try and draw, as many different subjects as you can and retain as much information as you can. That's a huge one too, on top of fundamentals.
Yeah, I think that's a huge. I'm glad you brought that up. Right now I'm actually in the birds. I've been doing a lot of like bird studies. Man, birds are so
Nice.
interesting.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to incorporate humans with birds, and I'm trying to figure out like full bird anatomy, but also at the same time understanding their construction of their faces. So how do you morph that into a humanoid creature? I tried that with fish as well, like fish characters and things like that that are more aquatic. So I like to morph I like my visual library together because I like to make it fun for myself. And I think that's super important, man. Visual library, dude. That's a great thing that you brought up, because I think a lot of people underestimate what that is, and they don't really understand the importance of that. And I think the fact that you have a weekly regimen of design a day, you know what I mean, like a subject a day, um, that's important to even say to students that even though your school is done, your this is a lifestyle. This is not a like, oh, I like to draw on occasions or when I'm with my friends. This is a lifestyle. This is not something that you know this is your career. This is who you are. This is the person that you are. You become an artist, a designer, and this is part of your life, man. It's like, again, it's like breathing. It's like inhaling and exhaling. You can't have
Yeah.
one without the other. You gotta make both things work. You know what I mean? Especially
Yeah.
like what you're doing. You know what I mean? Continuously building up that library.
Yeah. Nah, school's never done. I'm, yeah, never satisfied with where my skill level's at. I'm always trying to get better. Uh, yeah, I'm always humbled whenever I go on social media, humbled and inspired. Cause yeah, like I just friends with so many amazing artists on Facebook, and like following so many great people on Instagram and Twitter and all that. And,
Sure.
yeah, I'm just constantly like, oh, how can I get to that level? And yeah, like, what you're talking about with, just focusing on like birds for, that's also something I've done where you just, you take like a couple weeks to just focus on one thing in particular, like that, this like a thing that I've been doing for a few months now where I focus on a different subject every day. Um, that's kind of newer. And yeah, I'm wondering if I'm maybe overloading my brain with too much info. Um, because then it's like on top of all that, then I have to like get to work after that, and then I also try and do like a study, like digital painting at the end of the night, just for myself. And yeah, it's like maybe I'm doing a little bit too much right now, and it's when you just focus on like one thing for like a week or two, I do feel like that's maybe the better way to go. But well, always experimenting, always trying to
Yeah.
see what helps stuff stick the best.
What would you recommend to students that are watching that are in need of, or that are stuck actually, and are looking for some advice on people like that are stuck in, like I don't know what to draw, I don't know what to do, where should I start, where do I go if I don't know what to draw, like what would you recommend?
Well, again, I mean, right now I've, I just kind of dedicated every day of the week to a different subject. I mean, first and foremost, you know, for someone who's like starting out or what, I would just say focus on, what you love to draw. To, whether it's like animals or people or vehicles, or,
Mhm.
do lots of like fan art. Also, draw from, uh, your favorite character from, a movie or a video game or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, uh, yeah, I mean, there's or like we were just talking about too. I mean, you can uh, just decide you want to like focus on one thing in particular for a couple weeks, and just every day in your sketchbook, like that's probably one of the better things you could do actually, is just like dedicate 2 weeks to just drawing like faces, like draw 5 faces a day
Mhm.
in your sketchbook. um maybe 10, 15, however, depending on what time you've got. um and then the next, and maybe like, again, like if you're starting out, I think this is probably the best thing to do, like focusing on the fundamentals. And like in that regard, like anatomy, like um like I remember when I first decided that I was gonna like try and get better at anatomy, I was like, okay, I'm gonna spend like a day drawing faces, a day drawing hands, and it's like that doesn't do like jack. That it's better than nothing. But yeah,
Yeah.
you want to focus, like you want to dedicate like a huge amount of time to one thing in particular.
Mhm.
If you're starting out, that'll really help that info stick. And so yeah, like if you're going through like the human body, just looking for like one of my anatomy books. But like just go through the chapters, like drawing the head, like do that for 2 weeks, drawing the hands, do that for 2 weeks, drawing feet, do that for 2 weeks, legs, arms, torso, etc. um uh and yeah, I mean, you can go on Pinterest and just draw from reference, and that's a big thing too, is like when you're first starting out, like don't worry about drawing from imagination. That's something that I've seen people do, like when they're still struggling with like drawing from reference, is they're like, I'm going to challenge myself and draw from my imagination. It's like, well, your imagination, your visual library is empty, because you can't even really draw what you see. That, like, that's what you need to focus on. So yeah, like just drawing from reference. I was going to add another thing. Uh,
It's all right.
um, oh yeah, yeah. Then there are certain websites and like groups that will have like daily topics for you to draw. Like I know one that's still around that, you know, has been around for a while is like Daily Spit Paint on Facebook. You know, stuff like that, where I mean that's like I think with that one they give you like 4 different topics, and then you have to like draw. You get like 30 minutes to just like try and paint something. I think that kind of requires a bit of a visual library too, because that's a short time, and that would kind of require a lot of reference for some of those topics. But yeah, I mean, there are always like art challenges too, like on social media. I mean,
Sure.
I've been doing a lot of those lately, and I'm, you know, like again, that's on top of freelance work and the sketchbook stuff. So I'm maybe I kind of need a vacation, I think. But I yeah, like, you know, stuff like, you know, especially around like Halloween time, you know, you got Drawloween and Inktober and,
Yep.
you
Yep.
know,
Yep.
all that kind of stuff. And yeah, Creed January, March of the Robots, Mermaid, you know, that's all good. Yeah. I mean, another big one for, you know, if you're wondering what to draw, like find your favorite artist and, you know, try copying their work. Uh, you know, you know, if you want to post it to social media, that's fine. But you know, with the caveat, like, you know, don't claim it's your work. Always credit the original
Credit the
artist
artist.
if
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
doing
for
like
sure, for sure. That's
a
important.
master copy. Yeah. Uh, and I mean, a really good thing to do for, you know, if you're doing like master copies or studies or anything, is to um draw, you know, copy it, and then put away your drawing and your and the original image, and try and redraw it from your imagination,
Mm.
and then or from your memory, I should say, and then pull the original back up, and you know, it'll probably look really bad compared to the original, especially if you're first starting out. But you know, that's okay. Just take notes of, you know, what you got wrong, like observe what looks right, what doesn't, and then, you know, maybe after that try drawing it again. You know, and that's something that that was something that I did a lot of when I decided I was gonna get better. Like I did that with a lot of like Ian McCaig's artwork. Um, and uh, and you know, that's also a good like practice in general for, you know, just like your own original ideas too. Because this is like a quote from Ian McCaig. Something like your your first drawing has like the the wonder of your imagination or something. This Your second drawing has the authority of your research, and your third drawing brings it all together to create something special. It's something along those lines, but
Sure.
pretty much that he said that quote in regards to his process, where he draws something just from his imagination, just an idea. You don't need to spend long on it. Just, you know, I did this while thinking about just like you know, pirates or whatever, just like, you know, like uh gonna draw like a pirate just on a ship deck. You know, maybe there's like a kraken tentacle coming at him, and he's got his sword out or whatever. And you know, again, don't spend too long on that. And then for your second drawing, then bring up a bunch of, you know, reference.
Yep.
You know, pirate clothing, octopus tentacles, what a ship deck looks like, um, and yeah, redraw your original drawing with all the reference.
Mm.
And this is like, you know, generally the process for anything. You know, you do your thumbnails, and then while you're in the illustration process, you use a lot of reference, especially for rendering. But yeah, and then after those two drawings, then you put everything away and try and remember, you know, you take your original idea, your, you know, the image that you had in your head, and then apply all the reference that you just took for your second drawing, and then do a third drawing, and it should look pretty good. Again, if you're just starting out, you know, it'll be a little rough for a while, but you know, it should get better eventually. So
Here's one question for you too. Is like I know you've worked with a lot of pretty big clients, and you've done a lot of amazing projects that you worked on. Um, what recommendation, because right now we're going through some graduations. A lot of the kids have already graduated art school, they're getting into the real world. um so if you're watching this video and you just graduated, here's some tips for you. What would you recommend somebody who's having a hard time landing a job after school? Like, what would you recommend, not only for portfolio purposes, but also what type of encouragement would you give them to starting out in the industry?
Um, well, a big thing is make sure you're networking. Um, be be on all social media sites. Make sure people are seeing your work. And even then, I mean, it's it is still difficult to be seen, but you need to at least put yourself out there.
Mm.
And because it takes a long time to build up an audience. Like I'm still working at it. And also going to conventions is a big thing.
Mm.
I've been to a number, not as many as I should, but it is expensive to do. But I've been to Spectrum, Fantastic Art Live. I've been to CTN, and most recently this last year I was at a Lightbox Expo.
Wow.
And it's really good to go there and make connections. Show people your work. Bring lots of business cards. Exchange those. Leave them all over the place. And try and I remember, it's kind of like a saying just in general, is that, generally it's not like what you can do, it's like who you know. I think is the saying, like, you got to meet like the right person at the right time, to get your foot in the door. And because, it's a really difficult, career path to get started in. It's, again, it took, I've only really been working professionally for, probably like 3 years, I'd say now at this point. So that's like, it was like 8 years out of art school, I guess. Like, so for a long time, because, before then it was just, I was getting work, but it was, just kind of commissioned work from independent creators, just, like, hey, can you paint this character for my, the cover of my book or whatever. Which is good, but that's that they were kind of few and far between. And so, I'm also having to, like I said, like work warehouse jobs and whatnot. And so, and it's like that for most people, I think. I don't know too many people who right out of school just immediately started working. And I know, like, there are a few people I know who did that, and mainly it was because they networked a lot while they were still in school. They made sure that they talked to the right people to get like internships at nearby places, and they were really like on their A game when it came to meeting people before they even graduated.
Yep.
And let's see. I guess also, you, like I said, another thing, like as it pertains to me, was, I had to look at my work and be like, okay, if I was an art director, would I hire me? And you got to be brutally honest with yourself. You got to, remove yourself from the artwork. And that's a big thing with, just being a good artist in general, is you have to be able to self-critique. You have to be able to go like, all right, this looks like crap. I need to like,
Right.
like I said, like pull up reference, do some studies. I need to improve at this. And if you honestly don't think that you would hire yourself, then like I said, go back to the fundamentals. That's where improvement is. I was talking a lot about like visual library and all that. Like, that's kind of like the icing on the cake. Like, that's something that, is good for just making you a faster worker, and getting you better at just like coming up with ideas from your imagination.
Yep.
But like the main thing for improvement is the fundamentals.
True.
You want to get better at your anatomy, your color, and your light, your perspective, all that jazz. And yeah, I'm thinking that's.
I think
Oh,
you
and
go ahead.
one other big thing, or possibly a few more. You really you want to know exactly what you want to do. The best thing you can do is like have a company in mind that you want to work for. I mean, a lot of people, like in all my mentorships and stuff, a lot of people would say like, oh, I want to design characters for Riot. I want to do, or like do splash paintings or whatever. The more specific that you can be in like what you want to do, the better that you'll be at that particular thing. And that's another like, issue that I've had is like, I'm so, I've had a difficult time deciding exactly what it is I want to do. Like I said, with like my various styles and like, switching between like illustration work and more like creature and character design and stuff. And, though I think it's good to be, again, like we talked about, it's good to have, be able to, tackle various subjects and different, styles and all that. But yeah, the more specific that if you're trying to get your foot in the door, like have a really good idea of what you want to do and tailor your portfolio to that. And like if you want to do a lot of characters, focus on characters. Again, like in your spare time, try and also work on getting good at vehicles and creatures and props and all that, environments. Like be at least capable of doing other things, but focus specifically. Like if you want to be a character designer, focus on character design. And I say like try and practice other things, because a lot of time when you first start like at a studio, or when people first start off where you work, before you're like really known for doing one thing, they'll probably ask you to do some some stuff that maybe the other artists don't want to do, which is usually like props and stuff.
Right.
Like that's not really like the sexy job that people
Right.
But yeah, it's good to be able to be capable of doing those things, just in case someone wants you to do those. And because you want to be able to, when you're first starting out, you want to be able to do like essentially any job that's offered to you. You shouldn't really say no to anything. Again, we were talking about like if there's a project that you think is too much for you, again, I would suggest trying to do it. I think most of the time you'll kind of find if you do pull up enough reference, and maybe if you're able to like get another set of eyes on what you're doing or whatever, like maybe you should be able to pull through. But yeah, I kind of forgot what like my original. I think I got my point across.
No, I think I know you're absolutely right, dude. I think that was the important part, is like to just make sure that when you're putting out your work, and I think you nailed it when you said to be specific on where you want to go, because it does narrow things down a lot. That's one of the biggest key things I tell a lot of students is try to find a studio, even if you don't know where you want to go, just pick a studio in your brain and just say to yourself, listen, I want to go work at DreamWorks. And so you come up with characters and stuff that would fit in a DreamWorks style movie, and build your characters, the props, the worlds, the the color palettes, the mood board, all that stuff that goes into working for a company like that.
Come up with like an idea for a movie that
100%,
like DreamWorks could do.
100%.
And I think, yeah, it's even if that company doesn't hire you, there will be other companies that have maybe a similar style to that, that will see your work and go, oh snap, this person would be perfect with us. Like,
and I think that's another thing too you mentioned, is that a lot of times everybody wants to be a character artist. Like everybody wants the hero character, everybody wants to go for this, but it's such a competitive field just to be a character artist. It
That's
is.
what everyone wants to do. Yeah.
Everybody wants to be a character artist, but I think it was, I want to say it was Anthony Jones that said this one time, is like, try to do the background art. You know what I mean? Try to do the stuff that'll get you in the studio, because then you could build yourself up into the character artist, but then you
Hmm.
have a long more longevity because you also have done the grunt work. You've done the background art that nobody wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of times people don't understand that that's a good avenue to take, because then you say to yourself, okay, while everybody's trying to go to the front door where all the character artists are, I could go through the side door where the background artists are, and I'm going to go through the side door because no one's even here.
Yeah.
So the chances of you getting into a studio to do something that is a little bit, maybe not the hero stuff, but it'll definitely get you in the door. And I think that's what you mainly want to do, is get in the door, because at the end of the day, a good art director is going to see your potential. They're going to see your growth. They're going to see your capabilities to design and create props, characters, vehicles, and all that stuff. But because you went through the side door, it's going to be a lot easier to get your foot in the door and in front of a director quicker than having to fight 50,000 people that want that one particular job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's super
Well, I
great
mean,
advice.
yeah, I mean, there's some, I'm forgetting her name. There's like this one, she's like an art YouTuber who, um, she started out like not even in an art field, like just she was working at Riot as like an IT person or something,
Hmm.
and she got friendly like with the art team and was like practicing art in like on the side, and she just like one day asked if she could like design a skin for a character and have them look at it or something, and then yeah, they wound up like using her skin like in the game, and now she like does art YouTube like full time, I think. So yeah, I mean, it's just like
Yeah,
really anything you can do to like get in the door,
that's right. That's right. And I
and
think
just meet the people you need to meet. Again, it's networking. It's who you know.
I think when I wanted to go to Blizzard, I remember that I had to focus my energy on that style. So that's another thing too, is create the style that you want to go to. A lot of students tend to give, well, a lot of time when I look at portfolios, I would say about, could exaggerate a little bit, but I'm gonna probably be honest when I say this. Probably about 8 out of 10 students that show me the portfolio, there's anime in it, and
Oh,
there's just so much anime in there, and it just seems like that's where they want to go. And I talked to Steven Silver about this too, and Steven was saying like, yeah, manga studios only hire Japanese artists. Like there's really very little amount of art that is artwork available for artists that are trying to get into the genre, unless you do your own thing, which is great. But again, there's a higher hustle rate that you're going to have to understand. You're going to have to get into is to hustle hard to get your book out or get your manga out. But again, if you want to get into Riot or Blizzard or any of these big studios, Sony, any of the studios that are out there, or even if you get into games, like or movie studios, again, it's like, you gotta just make sure that your portfolio is ready for that sort of genre. And I think some of the students that I've worked with, or that I mentor, have always brought this like very heavy anime style of art into their stuff. Now, I mean, I won't kid you, man. Like, I mean, I grew up with manga too, Akira and
mhm.
Ghost in the Shell, and these type of movie influences. And I drew them on the side. I drew, some cool characters that had the Akira look and whatnot, but it wasn't me. It was just me copying things. And I think that's where I think a lot of times students forget that if you don't understand your core fundamentals and in your build up your visual library, you won't really find your own voice. You always will be
Mhm.
copying someone else's voice. You know what I mean? And so I think that's the takeaway I had growing up in the industry, is to figure out what was my voice, what's my style. I think when I look at your work, Kyle, is like there's a particular style that you have, and I think that I gravitated towards your style because it reminded me a lot of my style. And I think that when we like brought our styles together to create an image or whatever, we blended together really easily when it came to the illustration. Um, but I think again, the style, the versatility that you have, you're very adaptable, and I think that's the key thing. And again, visual library fundamentals get you to be pretty, you know, versatile when it comes to any studio you want to get into. So I think you're a perfect example of how you can literally get into a studio, become a chameleon in the studio, and you seem like you work at the studio like you've been here for a while. And I think that that goes to show because of all the hours and the mileage you put in your pencil on your sketchbook, that really shows that you can adapt really easily to any studio, especially a studio like mine. And I think, like I said, that's why I always love working with you, man, because you're always like you're always like in it, man. You give what you give, and it's always high caliber work. So um
Thank you.
so yeah, so a lot of the stuff that we really want students to understand um is to understand the fundamentals. And being a freelancer, I think is real briefly, if you could tell me real quickly, how is it being a freelancer versus being an in-house artist? Like your journey in like 3 minutes. What do you want to say to those that want to just be a freelancer?
Well, I haven't worked in house, so I can't really give a a
So perfect. I'm
full
asking the right guy.
comparison. But um, yeah, no, I've really enjoyed just freelancing. You can just work from the comfort of your own home, and um, to work as late as you want, I guess. Which isn't a problem for me. I guess other people have lives, and want to go home and like get away from their work. But it's you can take on whatever work you want. You get offered all kinds of variety of projects. Yeah, I don't know. It's been great for me.
Would you recommend people to try freelancing, or what's the hustle like there? Do you have to go look for the work? Do you have to connect with the right people? Like what how do you find success in freelancing?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, if you're starting out, you do need to find the work. Again, being really active on social media, posting a lot, um, uh, forming connections, both, like I touched on, going to conventions and whatnot earlier. I mean, for me, what started getting me a lot more work was, a friend of mine who's an art teacher. She recommended that I was talking with her, and I told her that I wasn't on LinkedIn, and she gave me some crap for that, and so then I started on LinkedIn, and not long after that, I got approached to do some illustration work for a mobile game, and then um, I was doing that for like a few months, and then not long after that, you reached out to me on there about Spirit.
Yeah.
Um, uh, yeah, so, and I think a part of that was just me like being, posting on there regularly. I think you reached out to me around like it was like in November or something, so it was not long after like I had been uh, doing a bunch of Halloween artwork for, like I was saying, like for those art challenges. I'm assuming you saw those, and
Yeah.
uh,
I think I
yeah,
saw
just
your I think I saw your art station, and that's how I got. I think I saw you on LinkedIn, and then I saw your art station. That's when I was like, this is my dude right here, man. I got to get in touch with this guy. No, but it was your bear, your warrior bear that you did. I think that one was like the hit.
oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
there you go. There you go. Yeah, that one.
okay.
That's the one that definitely that drew my attention again, because I have Blizzard in my heart, and I it really resonated with me, and so I felt like this is definitely somebody that can understand the style that I'm going to go for, and that sort of stuff. So I think that was important, and I think a lot of people really take LinkedIn for granted. I've been approached several times on LinkedIn, actually pretty often, and I think that's the important thing about LinkedIn is like you really just build network and you build connections, and the more people. Obviously, I'm not looking for work at the moment, but it's nice to know that people are reaching out because they see your portfolio, they'll see your post, or they'll see your engagement and that sort of stuff. And I think people really gravitate towards people that are involved, that are getting that are doing stuff. And I think especially with with the style, and again, it's like people just they reach out, and I think LinkedIn is a very important. But I think I'm done with Instagram. I'm like over it. Like I'm like done. Sorry, Instagram. But I think Instagram now has gotten to a point where like I don't recommend it for students. I only do Instagram for like if it's like a quick portfolio check. Like here's a couple things I've done. It's a
Mm,
little just like a here's where I download some of my side stuff I do. ArtStation and or my core flop portfolio, whatever. I put my stuff in there. But for
mhm.
the most part, like I mean ArtStation and those type of websites are the ones that I keep my real art that I can share with people, you know what I mean? Whether it's vehicle
Yeah,
design, props and whatnot. But LinkedIn, man, that's a spot if you really want to get people, real people that are going to really need you for work.
yeah,
Instagram is not there for work. You might get some freelance work and you might get some contacts and some followers. But if you truly want work, man, people really are underestimating LinkedIn and the power of what that type of network can bring. So yeah, man, I'm yeah,
yeah.
I'm connected with you on LinkedIn. That's where, and so
Yep.
that's cool. I mean, that again, that goes to show, man, that's that's where people go for real work.
Yeah, yeah, like I said, I mean, posting something that, is similar to what a potential client might want to see. And yeah, I mean, yeah, with Instagram, yeah, Instagram's weird. Like, yeah, I know a lot of artists are leaving it, and it's like apparently it's just getting flooded with, like, the algorithm is flooded with AI stuff. And like when I post on there now, I only get like 5 likes usually on stuff, whereas like a couple of years ago I would get like, a couple hundred, and like, so that's, yeah, that's been weird. But um yeah, I mean, another thing I want to note, just in terms of like being proactive when searching for work, is um, uh, well, again, like really hunting down places for you to submit your portfolio to. Um, something that I started doing, around the same time that I was posting on LinkedIn, was uh, doing a lot of research and looking into lots of like indie game companies.
Yep.
Because but before then I had been like submitting work to like some of the big boys, and I would get like a kindly, you know uh, try again later or
Yeah.
whatever letter.
Thanks for applying.
And yeah, and yeah, like something again in regards to doing something, like having a studio in mind and doing work that's geared towards that studio,
Yeah.
that will potentially draw the eyes of other people. You also want to be submitting that same work to, like, again, if your aim is to do like concepts for Riot or Blizzard or
Yep.
whatever, just look at other smaller video game companies that you can
Sure.
submit work to, because again, it's all about getting your foot in the door. Like I don't really know anyone who, like, when they first got a job, like started at Blizzard or whatever. I mean, it's probably happened. Like,
It
there's some
happens. It does
people with
happen.
godlike talent or skill. I don't like using talent,
Yeah.
because that implies they didn't work to get as good as they are, which I know is a lie. But uh, yeah, yeah, just yeah, you always got to, when you're first starting out, especially, yeah, even when you have some experience, you got to be proactive, and yeah, I mean, aiming for the smaller companies, because they're not going to be as you know it's not going to be as important to them that you have like a bunch of experience. um Whereas some of the bigger companies, they do want you to have a lot of experience with, like, you had to have like shipped a game or something.
Sure.
Sometimes not. From what I hear, that's not always the case. Like, if you're good enough, like, they will offer you a job. But generally, like, if you're just kind of starting out and you're applying for like a junior character designer position or something, they do want you to have some experience. At least, again, that's my understanding of the situation. So yeah, just, yeah, gotta always be proactive, gotta always be posting, gotta always be connecting, gotta always be reaching out, gotta write a lot of cover letters. I yeah.
That's cool. Well, Kyle, man, thank you so much for your time, dude. I really appreciate you, man. I thank you for all the hard work you've done for us. And again, just keep up the good work, man. You're inspiring me, dude. Every time I see your
Thanks,
post,
man.
and I'm really glad that you're part of the ASC mentorship, man. It means a lot to me that you're here with us. And yeah, dude, I'll catch you on the next one then.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
All right, brother.
It's great.
Thanks, brother. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too, man.
Well, guys, we made it to the end of the video. Thank you again for watching. We do appreciate you guys being here. Again, follow all the social media links down below. Check out Kyle's Art Station. Follow him on Instagram. Check out all his work. Man, that discipline this guy has is so incredible. It's very inspiring, and I hope it inspired you today. So thank you for watching. Remember, stay inspired, stay creative, and stay social. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.